How would you like to win £45 million by backing a horse at huge odds that has already won its race? Sounds impossible, but it happened in 2011. Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. So how do you make 45 million in just a few minutes? Sounds impossible, but as they always say, always use the word impossible with the greatest of care, because it happened in 2011. Had to think about that for a split second then, but it happened during Christmas week in 2011. Now, as I mentioned in other videos, you have the Leopardstown Christmas Festival going on at this particular time of year. And it was during that meeting that this particular situation occurred. People managed to back 1.6 million during a race at odds of 29 on the eventual winner. So how did it happen, and what was so unusual about it? The race itself was the Christmas Hurdle at Leopardstown. And there was a horse in there called Vola la Vedette, which I understand is French. And the race itself was pretty much nothing unusual. Nothing unusual had happened over the course of the day up until that particular race. Now, as you know, I trade pre-off, so traded the race fairly frequently. Did as best as I could, didn't get a great amount on the particular race itself, and then the race turned in play. Now, typically, I will just start looking at the next race then. I may watch the race, but I'll start analysing and looking at the next race. But there was something odd about this particular race, because when the market went in play, it seemed that the odds were sort of stuck at that particular moment within the market. And I sort of looked at it casually, but didn't pay much attention to it. But as the race progressed, I could see that there was a big problem in the market. And the big problem was that somebody was in the market and they had laid £21.5 million at odds of 29. Now, typically, you expect now and again to see some sort of odd activity, but who on earth, you can do the maths yourself, I can't work it out off the top of my head, but if you multiply 21.5 million by 29, that's a pretty big number. And somehow somebody had that in their account, they'd laid it on this particular horse, and they were willing to take all money on the other side of the book. Anybody that wanted to back it in 29, come on, I'm going to take all of your money. But there was a problem, because as the race progressed, Vola la Vedette looked like it was going to win. It was running particularly well, and it was heading the field at various points, and really the odds should have been much, much shorter. But what happened in the market? Did the person cancel their bets? Did they take all of the money out of the market? Nope, they just left it there at odds of 29. And no matter how much people backed at those odds, the money remained. And as the race progressed, it was obvious that there was something weird going on, because this particular horse went on to run a good race and it crossed the line. And when horses cross the line, what odds will they be? They'll be at 101 to lay, because they've absolutely definitely won the race. But no, this particular horse was still available in the market at odds of 29. Something really strange had just happened. So of course, after the race, the whole trading community went into total meltdown, because how on earth can you have a horse that's just won the race and had crossed the line and still available to back at 29? And a lot of people had backed. Nobody had the money or the funds in their accounts to take all 21 million on that particular runner, but 1.6 million had been matched at odds of 29, which would have won £45 million. So obviously something had gone really seriously wrong. Betfair suspended the market, and they did not settle, which of course caused all sorts of problems, because a lot of people had gone into that seeing it at odds of 29, a few furlongs from the post, when it was obviously going to win, and they just used their entire account and blatted the market with all of the money that they had, remortgaged the house, sold the kids, and basically put all of the money onto this particular horse. And all of a sudden their account balance was zero, and Betfair weren't settling the market. Something had gone seriously wrong. Now, obviously that created an absolute firestorm of activity. You go onto the forum, and you look at the papers that were released the following day in the Racing Post and so on. There was a lot of fuss. This particular race ended up at IBAS, the arbitration service for bookmakers and punters. Because basically, how did the money appear on Betfair if it never existed in the first place? And Betfair was saying fairly soon after the race that there had been a technical fault that had created this particular problem. So people were sort of thinking, well, hold on a second, how does a technical fault manifest itself in terms of offering £21.5 million in the market at odds of 29 and allow people to back with it as well? And because it was so unusual, it did look like some sort of a glitch. And I think the problem that you have when you look at, and this is where AI and all of these things will be interesting to see how all of these patterns sort of unfold in the future, because to err is to human, to totally cock up needs a computer. And obviously something had gone wrong. It could be with the database that they were using, it could be a hardware limitation, something had gone wrong. Now, all these years later, we never actually did get a full explanation as to what had happened, but what Betfair decided to do was eventually void the entire race, which upset a lot of people, because there was 1.6 million and had backed it to odds of 29 and had won 45 million, and all of that money had vanished. But of course it was never there in the first place. Now, because I wasn't trading in running on that particular race, it didn't affect me. I just sat there and watched in complete astonishment as everything unfolded. But a lot of people felt pretty hard done by. But all of a sudden the speculation started about what had actually happened. Was it the cross-matcher? All of these sort of things from there. But the interesting thing about this is, if you look at a lot of my videos, you'll notice the staking method that I use. I go the amount of stakes that I use will go 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, and the natural progression up from there is 2048, 4096, 8192, 16384, 655376, and so on. But there is a pattern there. The pattern that you're looking at there is binary. So I'm counting upwards and splitting my stakes, counting in binary basically. And if you actually look at the amount of money that was offered into that particular market, it's the 21.5 million, or the roughly 21.5 million, is actually the maximum signed value of a 32-bit, is the maximum positive value for a 32-bit signed integer. What is that? Well, I'm not going to explain in great depth, but basically that sort of fits that this was some sort of technical or database upper limit error that occurred with however the exchange was written or whatever platform the exchange was running on. So if you look at the maximum positive value for a 32-bit signed integer, it equals the amount of money that appeared in the market on that day. So it was some really way out there quirk that had never happened before and has never happened since, that somehow resulted in the exchange displaying phantom money that a lot of people bet on, and that quite clearly wasn't real money in any sort of particular sense, but maybe shouldn't have appeared on there anyway. So yeah, there was a lot of publicity and press around this when it particularly occurred. When we looked at it from a technical perspective, we sort of suspected that there was some sort of glitch that had caused that to occur, but Betfair never published a full statement on exactly how the situation developed and what particularly caused it. I suspect because if you knew exactly what caused it, you may be able to force the error going forward, which is why I suspect they never published it. But yeah, it was a very interesting moment. It was a highlight in all of the years that I've been actively trading. It's something very unusual to occur. And like I said, it's never happened again. But if you wanted to know how it was possible to win 45 million, that was how that particular situation occurred. Now the fact is, it didn't pay out, which was a bit of a shame, because that would have made a lot of people's Christmases. But that was the story of how £45 million was won and eventually lost through all of the bets being voided in just a few minutes at the Christmas hurdle at Leopardstown in 2011.